Travel back to the golden era of television with Wonder Woman 1975 to 1979. The groundbreaking series that turned Lynda Carter into a cultural icon and redefined what it meant to see a female superhero on screen. Week after week, audiences were captivated by Diana Prince's strength, grace, and heart as she fought for justice in a world that had never seen a heroine quite like her. Nearly 5 decades later, fans still wonder what happened to the cast who brought this legendary show to life. In 2025, some stars have enjoyed long careers in Hollywood, others took unexpected paths, and a few faded quietly from the spotlight. Join us as we uncover where they are now and how the magic of Wonder Woman continues to live on through the people who made it unforgettable. Lyle Waggoner was born on April 13, 1935, in Kansas City, Kansas, and in 1975, at the age of 40, he first appeared in Wonder Woman as Major Steve Trevor, later also portraying Colonel Steve Trevor, Jr. He was the dashing officer, a man of uniformed honor and polished manners, whose loyalty to Diana Prince often walked a fine line between devotion and desire. Audiences saw him as the idealized American hero, but behind the cameras, his story was soaked in contradictions. His childhood was marred by poverty and the silent frustrations of a father who resented his son's pursuit of acting. Growing up, Waggoner endured humiliation from wealthier classmates, which ignited his lifelong hunger for attention and material success. His acting career began with promise, but quickly hit walls. He was passed over for leading roles and famously lost out on playing Batman to Adam West, a blow that shadowed his confidence for years. His 1973 Playgirl centerfold spread where he posed nearly nude, scandalized Hollywood, and stained his credibility with producers who labeled him unserious while simultaneously making him a sex symbol women adored and men mocked. He was known for arrogance on set, belittling less experienced actors, and his appetite for gambling was whispered about in Hollywood circles. In his personal life, though married to Sharon Kennedy, he was dogged by rumors of extramarital affairs and a tendency to treat relationships like trophies rather than partnerships. Even in business, when he created Star Wagons, he was ruthless, buying out competitors and allegedly strong-arming rivals into submission. Though the company would later be sold for $222 million, Lyle himself died of cancer on March 17, 2020, at age 84 in Westlake Village, California, with a personal fortune estimated at $10 million, far less than the empire he helped build. His legacy is paradoxical, remembered as both the charming leading man and the opportunist who never forgave Hollywood for sidelining him. Beatrice Colin was born on January 10, 1948, in New York City, and at age 28 in 1976, she stepped into the role of Etta Candy, the spirited secretary and loyal companion to Diana Prince. Etta was comic relief, the quirky, warm presence that grounded Wonder Woman's adventures, a character loved for her courage and wit. Yet Colin's real life was filled with pain and unmet expectations. Born into privilege as the granddaughter of Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright George S. Kaufman, she grew up with the crushing weight of comparison to her famous lineage, mocked by peers who accused her of riding on her grandfather's coattails. Her childhood was riddled with insecurity and the silent shame of feeling never enough. In Hollywood, she fought for visibility, but while her peers advanced, she faced humiliating setbacks. The harshest came when she was abruptly written out of Wonder Woman after just one season, sparking rumors of behind-the-scenes clashes with producers who found her difficult and unwilling to play submissive. Colin had a sharp tongue and an unfiltered honesty that alienated some colleagues though friends defended her as fiercely loyal. Her marriage to actor Patrick Cronin was fraught with jealousy separations and whispered fights, and although they remained together, the union was anything but tranquil. Professionally, she slid into obscurity, landing only minor guest roles while younger, prettier actresses took the spotlight. Her personal life was marred by bouts of depression and feelings of being trapped in the shadow of her family name. Then came the cruelest twist, a lung cancer diagnosis that metastasized to her brain. She faced her illness quietly, refusing to let Hollywood see her weakened, but her final months were marked by suffering. She died on November 18, 1999, at age 51 in Los Angeles, the very night her son's high school staged The Man Who Came to Dinner, ironically penned by her grandfather. Her fortune was modest, under $1 million. Her legacy remembered more for tragedy than triumph. Norman Burton, born December 5, 1923 in New York City, took on the role of Joe Atkinson in the second season of Wonder Woman in 1977 at the age of 54, portraying the stern yet oddly protective supervisor of the Interagency Defense Command, a character meant to embody bureaucratic authority, but who quickly became an anchor for the show's tone. Viewers saw him as unshakably professional, but behind the facade, Burton carried shadows from an unhappy childhood marked by poverty and ridicule. He was mocked for being shy, thin, and bookish, and often suppressed his emotions in silence. That repression followed him into adulthood, where, despite training at the prestigious Actors Studio, he found himself pigeonholed into cold, abrasive authority figures, never reaching the fame he craved. His career was littered with missed chances. He was once in talks for a leading role in a major thriller, but lost it after an explosive argument with the director, an episode that quietly branded him as difficult. On multiple sets, he was rumored to rewrite lines, obsessively demanding his vision override. Even star actors and his sharp temper left younger colleagues intimidated. Burton also developed a reputation for erratic behavior, disappearing for days in Mexico, where he immersed himself in gambling and heavy drinking, later returning to the U.S. to lecture students about discipline and control, as though his own life wasn't crumbling. Personally, his marriages fell apart under the strain of jealousy and emotional distance. One ex-wife accused him of being manipulative and cold to her children. Friends whispered about depressive episodes compounded by the deaths of close family members, and Burton became increasingly isolated, teaching in California, while escaping periodically to the quieter towns of Mexico. On November 29, 2003, at age 79, his life ended suddenly in a violent car accident near the California-Arizona border, leaving behind less than $1 million in assets, some modest real estate in Mexico, a small collection of rare books, and a few residual checks. Carolyn Jones, born April 28, 1930 in Amarillo, Texas, played Queen Hippolyta in 1976 at age 46, appearing as Wonder Woman's majestic mother, a regal and commanding figure who instantly captivated audiences with her elegance. Yet Jones's life was anything but royal, plagued by severe asthma since childhood, mocked for her frail health, and raised in a household scarred by emotional neglect. She learned early to conceal her pain behind charm. Determined to reinvent herself, she underwent rhinoplasty to change her appearance and fought relentlessly for roles in Hollywood, eventually achieving stardom as Morticia Addams in the Addams family, where her dark allure made her a cult icon. But behind the gothic glamour lay volatility. She was known to lash out at co-stars, manipulate producers with charm, and once stormed off a set in fury after being denied script changes. Her career faced brutal setbacks in the 1970s when directors branded her as too unpredictable, causing her to lose key roles and marking her most humiliating professional failure. Her personal life was no less tumultuous. Her marriage to Aaron Spelling ended in bitter divorce amid whispers of infidelity and control, and subsequent relationships often collapsed in betrayal and mistrust. Friends recounted her battles with depression and heavy drinking, hidden under layers of sophistication, while her health deteriorated silently. Diagnosed with cancer, she continued to work while concealing the severity of her illness, even as she lost strength. The illness, compounded by career decline, left her isolated and estranged from parts of Hollywood that once adored her. She died on August 3, 1983 in West Hollywood, at only 53 from colorectal cancer, her body failing even as she fought to maintain her elegant facade. At her death, her estate was estimated at $8,010 million, bolstered by property holdings and royalties, but her true legacy was her enduring cultural impact as Morticia and Hippolyta. Tim O'Connor, born July 3, 1927 in Chicago, entered the world of Wonder Woman in 1977 at age 50, taking on two contrasting roles: Andros, the mysterious alien envoy, embodying quiet wisdom, and Colonel Robert Elliott, a disciplined military officer. On screen, he exuded calm authority, but in reality, O'Connor's life was shaped by a painful upbringing in a fractured family where financial instability and emotional neglect left him desperate to prove his worth. As an actor, he built a prolific resume, over 400 episodes of Peyton Place, and leading roles in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, yet Hollywood insiders often dismissed him as a dependable utility player rather than a star of a label that embittered him. His reputation for calmness masked a darker side fellow. Actors remembered his perfectionism, cold silences, and a tendency to quietly sabotage rivals he felt overshadowed him. One of his most devastating professional humiliations came during the late 1970s, when at the height of his Buck Rogers fame, rumors of inappropriate behavior toward younger co-stars circulated. Though never proven, they nearly cost him his role and forced studio executives into damage control. Personally, O'Connor's life was equally turbulent. His marriages were plagued by jealousy and infidelity, and he was rumored to have engaged in affairs with both colleagues and fans. Privately, he struggled with dependence on prescription drugs for crippling anxiety, something he concealed under his calm public image, while friends claimed he suffered depressive breakdowns in silence. The loss of loved ones, combined with a career that never gave him the recognition he felt he deserved, pushed him further into retreat. By the 1990s, he had left Hollywood behind for the quiet town of Nevada City, California, where he directed local theater productions, more out of need for community than passion. He died on April 5, 2018 at the age of 90, succumbing to colon cancer, leaving behind an estate of approximately $2 to $3 million, primarily modest real estate and residuals. Dak Rambo, born November 13, 1941, in the dusty town of Earlimart, California, burst into Wonder Woman in 1977 at 36, playing the futuristic alien Andros II, a role designed to be mysterious and alluring, and audiences instantly fell for his charisma. On screen, he radiated power and vulnerability, but behind that surface lived turmoil. As a child, he endured ridicule for his fragile appearance, suppressing shame and anger that would later fuel his ambitious yet volatile climb into soap opera stardom. His career in Dallas, All My Children and Another World, was glittering but fraught with sabotage. He was notorious for heated arguments with producers, walking off sets mid-shoot and manipulating storylines to favor his image. He courted scandal with rumors of reckless bisexual affairs, late-night bar fights, and his obsession with alcohol and painkillers. At his career's height, his greatest fall came not from his talent, but his truth. In 1991, after contracting HIV, He admitted both his bisexuality and his diagnosis, shocking an industry that recoiled. Studios blacklisted him overnight, stripping him of roles and endorsements. He turned instead to promoting men's underwear lines, flaunting a defiant lifestyle of flamboyant clothes, bold interviews, and unapologetic risk-taking. Personally, his love life was chaotic marriages. Collapsed lovers abandoned him, and friends complained of betrayal when he borrowed money he never repaid. Estranged from many, he battled alone until AIDS complications ended his life in Delano on March 21, 1994 at 52. His estate, including real estate investments, a car collection, and endorsements, was worth around $102 million, but lawsuits from former partners and disputes over medical debts chipped away at it. His legacy remains double-edged, a daring figure who broke Hollywood's silence on AIDS stigma, but also a man consumed by excess and punished brutally by an unforgiving industry. Richard Eastham, born June 22, 1916, in Opelousas, Louisiana, stepped into the role of General Phil Blankenship in 1976 at age 60, becoming the stern, commanding presence who embodied the voice of military authority opposite Wonder Woman's defiance. To fans, he was the calm strategist, yet in reality, his life had been defined by an undercurrent of turmoil and disappointment. Raised in a household where emotional coldness was the norm, he turned to music as a refuge, developing his powerful baritone that eventually carried him to Broadway. His childhood scars of being dismissed and ridiculed for artistic ambition hardened into a man determined to control every room he entered. His Hollywood career stumbled repeatedly, though he won critical praise on stage, film, and television roles eluded him, and casting directors whispered that he was too difficult, too stiff, too arrogant. The most crushing professional humiliation came when he was set to star in a major musical film that collapsed before shooting, leaving him financially ruined and bitter toward an industry he never fully conquered. Known to have an acerbic tongue, Eastham alienated colleagues with brutal honesty that bordered on cruelty, and he drowned personal disappointments with alcohol, particularly during the lonely touring years. His marriage suffered from long absences and mutual resentment, and though it never became a public scandal, insiders knew it was marked by jealousy and estrangement. Later, as roles dried up, he faced the cruel unraveling of Alzheimer's, which stripped him of memory and dignity. He died on July 10, 2005 at age 89 in Sherman Oaks, California, from complications related to the disease. His estate was modest and largely consumed by medical expenses, leaving no grand inheritance, no empire of wealth. Yet, his invention of the Sidewinder guitar restringing tool, which briefly sold tens of thousands of units, remains his most unexpected contribution. A strange legacy of a man whose brilliance was undercut by bitterness and whose life was a war against obscurity. Lynda Carter, born July 24, 1951 in Phoenix, Arizona, was only 24 when she transformed into Diana Prince or Wonder Woman in 1975, instantly defining the image of the Amazon warrior for generations. On screen, she radiated moral strength, beauty, and grace, but off-screen, her life was turbulent. Carter's childhood was far from glamorous. She grew up in a fractured family, often feeling unwanted and invisible, mocked for her unusual height and withdrawn nature. Pageantry became her escape, but behind the crown of Miss World USA 1972 was a young woman riddled with insecurity and struggling to find a place in Hollywood, where she endured humiliating rejections and producers who saw her as little more than a pretty face. Her career nearly collapsed before Wonder Woman, and even at the height of her fame, she privately spiraled, trapped in an unhappy first marriage to manager Ron Samuels, a controlling figure who reportedly mismanaged her finances, cheated, and leveraged her fame for his own deals. Alcohol became her refuge, and Carter later admitted she drank herself numb to survive the betrayal and constant pressure, often showing up late to sets and feeding rumors of her being difficult to direct. The greatest scandal of her later years came through her second marriage to Robert Altman, a powerful lawyer and later CEO of ZeniMax Media, whose involvement in a banking scandal thrust Carter into unwanted headlines, though he was eventually acquitted. Personally, she endured depression, alcoholism, and a lifelong struggle with self-worth, hidden behind her polished public persona, while also clashing with studios who resented her demands for more creative control. Despite these shadows, she rebuilt herself, turning to philanthropy and becoming an outspoken advocate for addiction recovery and women's rights. Now 74 in 2025, she still performs music and makes appearances living in Maryland with a net worth estimated between $10 to over $12 million, primarily in property royalties and residuals. She remains a survivor who, despite her triumphs, never fully escaped the scars of betrayal, control, and addiction. Ed Begley Jr., born September 16, 1949 in Los Angeles, was 29 when he took on the quirky role of Harold Farnham in Wonder Woman 1978, an awkward comedic character whose bumbling antics offered relief from the show's heavier storylines. Off-camera, however, Begley's life was anything but comic relief. The son of Academy Award-winning actor Ed Begley Sr., he grew up under immense pressure in a household where his father's stern expectations and alcoholism loomed over him, leaving deep scars of inadequacy. Dyslexic and constantly failing in school, young Begley was mocked by peers and teachers, forcing him to retreat into eccentricity and humor as survival tactics. In his early career, he was typecast in forgettable roles, struggling financially and emotionally. And his greatest downfall came during the 1970s when substance abuse consumed him. A violent altercation in Los Angeles left him stabbed and hospitalized, nearly ending his career before it began. And for years, he was known as unreliable and too odd to cast. On set, he could be obsessive, lecturing colleagues about eco-living and turning every production into a platform for his environmental beliefs, earning admiration from some, but irritation and avoidance from directors who found him distracting. His first marriage to Ingrid Taylor unraveled amid bitter fights, rumors of financial instability and emotional distance, leaving him estranged from his children for years. Despite the chaos, he reinvented himself as Hollywood's eccentric eco-prophet, living in a solar-powered home, biking to premieres, and becoming a vegan long before it was fashionable, though even this activism was sometimes mocked as self-righteousness. Personally, he battled health issues, lingering addiction struggles, and the constant shadow of never fully living up to his father's legacy. Yet, he carved a niche for himself as a respected character actor in Saint Elsewhere and countless films, his persistence slowly earning respect. Now 76, Begley continues to act while tirelessly advocating for environmental change with a modest net worth of $5 to $10 million invested in eco-properties and advocacy projects. Deborah Winger, born May 16, 1955 in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, was only 21 when she embodied Drusilla, Wonder Girl, in 1976, a fiery younger sister to Wonder Woman, injecting reckless youth and raw emotion into the series. Audiences adored her impulsive charm, but Winger loathed the role, feeling trapped in a childish image that could bury her career before it began. She walked away after one season, a defiant move that angered producers and solidified her reputation for being uncompromising. Her childhood had been steeped in pain. She grew up in a strict, emotionally distant household where affection was scarce. and her rebellious spirit was met with constant criticism. At 17, a near-fatal car accident left her bedridden and partially blind for months. An ordeal that hardened her and left her with a deep distrust of stability. Her later career was a paradox of brilliance and volatility. She earned 3 Oscar nominations for films like Terms of Endearment, but became notorious in Hollywood for fiery clashes with co-stars, open disdain for projects she disliked, and a refusal to play the game. She called An Officer and a Gentleman a cheap romance and refused to do publicity in raging studios, and she quit A League of Their Own over Madonna's casting, dismissing the pop star as unworthy of sharing the screen. Behind the scenes, she wrestled with turbulent relationships, including a stormy romance with actor Andrew Rubin and later a complicated marriage to Arliss Howard, filled with whispers of infidelity and long separations. Friends described her as magnetic but unpredictable, capable of warmth one moment and explosive anger the next. She also struggled with mental health periods of substance use and self-imposed exile from Hollywood, claiming disgust with the industry, though many suspected breakdowns played a role. Despite the chaos, her intensity made her unforgettable, though she was often labeled impossible to work with. At 70 in 2025, Winger lives a quieter life in New York, occasionally lecturing and writing, with a fluctuating fortune, estimated between $8 and $25 million, reflecting both her Oscar-level talent and the countless battles she fought, and often lost, against Hollywood's machinery. Ike Eisenman, born July 21, 1962 in Houston, Texas, was just 17 when he played Randy in Wonder Woman 1979. His soft-spoken manner and boy-next-door innocence made him instantly likable to audiences, but beneath that charm was the story of a child star molded by pressure and loneliness. Growing up in a family that struggled with financial insecurity, he was thrust into auditions at a young age, praised publicly but mocked privately by classmates who ridiculed him as the Disney kid. His early fame in Escape to Witch Mountain brought him adoration, yet it also chained him to an identity he could never escape. By adulthood, his career faltered, and Eisenman grew increasingly resentful, clashing with agents and casting directors, earning whispers of arrogance behind closed doors. His greatest professional humiliation came in 1989 when a film project he co-produced collapsed under financial mismanagement, leaving him drowning in debt, and whispered accusations of incompetence. Retreating into voice acting and post-production, he adopted the alias Yake Eisenman, a desperate attempt to reinvent himself. Yet insiders knew him as mercurial, prone to bouts of drinking and paranoia that colleagues avoided. His personal life mirrored the chaos. A troubled marriage ended in a bitter divorce, and attempts to find stability in new relationships often imploded amid arguments and mistrust. Friends noted periods of self-imposed isolation, where Eisenman withdrew from the world, obsessed with the idea that Hollywood had plotted to erase him. Despite these struggles, he managed to reinvent himself quietly as a writer and technician, though the sparkle of his child star days never returned. Now 63, he lives modestly and far from the spotlight. His estimated net worth around $800,000, a fraction of the fortune once predicted for him. His story stands as a haunting tale of child stardom's cruel aftermath. A man adored for innocence, but scarred by betrayal, crushed dreams, and the suffocating weight of what he could never live up to. Vincent Van Patten, born October 17, 1957, in Bellerose, New York, was 20 when he played Johnny in Wonder Woman 1977. Energetic and brash, his youthful charisma resonated with audiences, but his real life was a whirlwind of risk, rebellion, and excess. Raised in the long shadow of his famous father, Dick Van Patten, Vincent grew up in a household where expectations were suffocating, often dismissed as a lightweight compared to his siblings and mocked as riding on family fame. Determined to carve his own path, he threw himself into tennis and Hollywood. But behind the smile lurked an addiction to danger, gambling, reckless affairs, and a taste for nightlife that earned him notoriety. Though his tennis career brought him brief glory, including a famous win against John McEnroe, his Hollywood journey was littered with failures, the most brutal being a canceled TV pilot in 1981 that critics ridiculed as shallow and embarrassing, effectively shattering his chances at leading man status. His off-screen behavior fed the gossip columns' late-night poker games with criminal figures that nearly bankrupted him, whispers of affairs with married actresses, and a reputation for manipulating friends to fund his gambling debts. His first marriage collapsed in scandal, marred by explosive fights and public custody battles. And though his later marriage to soap star Eileen Davidson brought stability, tension with older children and old friends persisted. Known as both charming and dangerously compulsive, Van Patten danced constantly on the edge of ruin. Yet, he managed to reinvent himself as a poker commentator and novelist, masking past chaos with a polished veneer of success. Now 67, he balances acting, poker, and family life with a net worth of $2 to $3 million, far less than he once squandered in reckless bets. His legacy remains that of a risk-taker who thrived on danger, a man who flirted constantly with self-destruction, forever walking the line between brilliance and collapse. Mark Alaimo, born May 5, 1942 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was 37 when he played Pierce in Wonder Woman 1979. On screen, his piercing eyes and cruel smirk gave the villain an unnerving magnetism, cementing his reputation as a man born to embody darkness, but in real life, his own shadows often eclipsed his gifts. Raised in a fractured household where his father's violent temper and financial failures left deep scars, Alaimo spent his childhood masking pain with arrogance, hiding bruises of the spirit beneath a cold, aggressive facade. That rage became both his strength and curse when he entered Hollywood. Though praised for his intensity, he quickly earned a reputation for volatility, cutting insults toward colleagues and furious clashes with directors who dared to tame him. By the mid-1980s, after a disastrous audition where he drunkenly berated the producers and stormed out, Alaimo lost a career-defining role, and the humiliation sent him spiraling into years of alcoholism and paranoia. Rumors swirled of his harsh treatment of younger actors on stage productions, mocking them for weakness, even as he himself struggled with crippling insecurity. His personal life unraveled with 2 bitter divorces, including accusations of emotional abuse and neglect, leaving his children estranged, some refusing contact for years. In the 1990s, he briefly resurrected his career through Star Trek, but behind the applause lay bitterness at being forever typecast. Convinced the industry conspired to keep him trapped in villainy. Friends recall lonely nights of chain-smoking and drunken rants about betrayal, a man haunted by what might have been. Now 83, Alaimo lives quietly in obscurity, far from the Hollywood lights he once chased with desperation. His net worth remains under $1 million, a stark reminder of squandered opportunities. Yet, his cult following in Star Trek circles preserves his legacy, a tragic figure admired on screen, yet broken in life, a testament to the destructive weight of ego and unhealed wounds. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Wonder Woman and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so Let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.